During his final days in office, President Joe Biden has commuted the sentences of nearly 2,500 individuals convicted of nonviolent drug offenses. This recent round of clemency gives Biden the record for the most individual pardons and commutations issued by a president in history. Biden wanted to address the issue of disproportionately long sentences compared to the sentences they would receive today under current laws, policies, and practices. In a statement, he said today's clemency action provides relief for individuals who receive lengthy sentences based on discredited distinctions between crack and powder cocaine, as well as outdated sentencing enhancements for drug crimes. This action is an important step toward righting historic wrongs, correcting sentencing disparities, and providing deserving individuals the opportunity to return to their families and communities after spending far too much time behind bars. Now, he also said that there'll be more forthcoming action before he leaves office on Monday. Again, his tenure ends at 11:59 a.m. on Monday, January 20th. Joining me now is the president of Families Against Mandatory Minimums, Dr. Shaniva McReynolds. Doc, glad to have you here. So first and foremost, have they released the names of these 2,500 individuals? The reason I say that, when I was at at one of the White House Christmas parties, there were a number of sisters who were protesting outside of the White House, trying to bring attention to a number of women who had been incarcerated. And so, do we know who these 2,500 folks are as of yet?
First, let me thank you, Roland, for having me on tonight. And absolutely, the White House did go live with that list. It's on whitehouse.gov. There are 2,490 names listed there.
2,490 names. Are there any names that have been folks have really been waiting on, who've been in there for a very long time? Can you just shed light on who some of these folks are?
Yeah, so, FAM has been a thought partner in this work for a very long time. We've been advocating for, the President Biden to exercise his clemency powers for people sentenced under crack and powder cocaine disparity, long under extreme sentences, mandatory minimums that no longer can, be imposed today, and then the old law. So, of course, what we did when that list came out, and we're still doing, almost 2,500 people coming through that list to see the individuals that are on there. We're identifying several that have life sentences, that have, again, lengthy sentences that have been imposed for a very long time that they likely wouldn't have received today.
And there are a lot of people who've really been putting in the work, pushing this president to take this action. We had Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley on the show last night. We've had Kimber Smith on the show before. We've had other members of Congress. And so for people who don't know, it's been a lot of hard work, phone calls, emails, text messaging, direct protests, trying to get President Biden to make this happen.
Yeah, thank you for reiterating that. There's no way to capture, the number of individuals, organizations, just allies alike, alongside of FAM that have been in the trenches, legislators, organizations just like FAM. We've done social media blitzes, Twitter days of action, clemency campaigns. We're reaching out to our, over 40,000 member list, asking them to tweet, post, contact your legislators, write, to the president and the White House. There's so many people involved with this, that should be, celebrating today alongside the families and the individuals who receive these clemencies.
As I said, Biden has said more will be forthcoming. So I take it y'all have not stopped that work.
That work is not going to stop, as you said, all the way up until 11:59 a.m. Right? We're going to continue to urge President Biden to consider more commutations. Hopefully all the way up until the very last moment. There's still hope, and we're asking all those involved, who have loved ones still incarcerated, who have been fighting for this for a long time, still continue to make your voices heard, still continue to make those requests. There's still so much work left to do.
This here, I was talking about this here was one of the protests as we were coming out of that White House Christmas party. Those sisters were out there, brothers and sisters, holding those signs up. Guys, pull the audio up. They were out there chanting, had music, and they were trying to talk to as many people to implore them to take up their cause. And you see some of the names there: Roberta Bell, Laz. I see a Cheyenne. I think some other names as well. I want to run it back, and so you see again those names. And so they were talking about individuals that have been in prison who, for self-defense, were victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and not just drug cases.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying, right? Second chances without kind of a focus on the offense category. And so, thank you for sharing that and reiterating that. I think no matter the offense category, these are individuals' loved ones who have served long unjust prison sentences, and everyone should be advocating to get their loved ones home. We want to amplify all of those names, all of the family members, and just hope that in his lasting moments that the president will continue to do exactly what he's been doing. I mean, today 2,500, previously 1,500. I mean, regardless of the offense category, second chances. That's what we're asking for.
Absolutely. Well, we certainly appreciate the work that you and others are doing. So, like I say, the work continues up until the absolute last second.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. I want to bring in my panel, Michael Imhotep, host, African History Network show out of Detroit. Morgan Harper, Director of Policy and Advocacy for the American Economic Liberties Project, joining us from Columbus, Ohio. Matt Manning, Civil Rights Attorney out of Corpus Christi. And also Matt is in mourning after that scoop and score last Friday in the Ohio State game. I'm sure Morgan. I don't know if Morgan, if you're a Ohio State fan or graduate, but let's just say, Morgan.
But we got to be a fan.
Say it again.
Not a graduate, but we have to be a fan. Yeah.
Well, let's just say Matt has had a rough week. And I'm sure he was not looking forward to this day. So as a Texas A&M graduate, I am happy that Matt has been in pain and all of the Longhorns. Let's start right with it. So Matt, I'll just go ahead and go to you first. When you look at the numbers, there, I mean, as we said, Biden has provided more pardons, commutations, and clemencies than any other president in history, righting the wrongs, as he said in that statement, of the sentencing and how these things have changed since people were put in prison.
Let me say first, you're the pettiest man in America because you texted me before that game was even over. So that really just does.
Oh, I'm King Petty.
He is the pettiest, y'all, because the game wasn't even over. And then the brother was sending me memes after the game to rub it in. So his time will come. And when it does, I will be right on this show telling you his time has come. In any event, as it relates to Biden's commutations, I think it's good that he has commuted the highest number of sentences and, I guess, pardons by a United States president. And I think what's really interesting about this is really a friction that always exists when it comes to the criminal justice system. People have a very difficult time figuring out what an appropriate length of sentence is. And that's important because obviously that can change over time. It can change with how society views sentencing. So this is important because it shows that the president recognizes there's a historical wrong as it relates to how the sentencing was done. And surely there are going to be a lot of people who say, yeah, but he contributed to it with his own policy years ago. And that's something for him to grapple with as it relates to his legacy. But I do think it's important because it puts at the forefront of the conversation, how do we sentence and how do we, put people in incarceration for appropriate times? Because as you can tell, especially with crack versus powder cocaine sentencing, a lot of it was driven by fear and by emotion and by mongrelization of people in urban communities as opposed to in white communities. So I'm glad there's some kind of historical response, but I think it puts at the forefront what we need to be doing on the front end, which is what is an appropriate way to sentence people, particularly for nonviolent crimes. And I think this puts that at the forefront of the conversation.
I'll go to you, Morgan, and while you're talking, go to my iPad, Anthony. This here is the list of the commutations, and you can see that they list all of these individuals, and there are some people. If I'm correct here, then let's just say you click Nathaniel Carter. You see they have numbers here. Those might be folks who still are in prison, but Morgan, look, the Constitution affords the President of the United States this level of power. Only he, never a she, has this power, and he gets to use it any way he so chooses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for anyone questioning whether government can do anything, I think the clemency power is a really clear example of that. And kind of building off the prior comments, I mean, one of my questions is, what is going to be the legacy? And this is the most, in one day, and kind of talking to Biden's mixed legacy on the criminal justice issue. I'm curious from fans' perspective of what do you think the story that people are going to be telling about Biden, about Democrats on this issue, and the takeaways, from here?
Well, I'll be honest. I think that folks, unfortunately, when you talk about legacy, I think people will talk about the debate performance and how awful that was, and how he dropped out, and how that led to Vice President Kamala Harris getting the nomination, and them losing, and Donald Trump getting another 4 years. We saw, we just simply saw how the American people refused to give this administration any credit when it comes to saving this economy. When you have the International Monetary Fund talking about the growth possibility of the American economy, that's only happened because of the last 4 years. When you talk about these pardons and commutations, not only that, if you talk about the confirming of the 235th federal judge. This right here, go to my iPad, Anthony. When you look at that, of course, setting the most in one term. And so you talk about the first black woman on Supreme Court, 45 to the nation's Court of Appeals, the most black women appointed to the appeals court, the most black judges appointed ever. I mean, we can go on and on and on. But unfortunately, when you lose, people sort of define your legacy a different way. We saw that with President Jimmy Carter. But I think, Michael, there's no doubt if you're one of those folks who's gotten a pardon, who's gotten clemency, who's gotten a sentence commuted, you're thankful for this president because he's done more in this category than Donald Trump ever did.
Absolutely. Or if you received any, if you go to HBCU, we know about $17 billion allocated to HBCUs since 2021, or if you were one of the approximately 5 million people.
Oh, hey, Mike, 1 second. Something is really bad with your audio, so we got to get that fixed because it's sounding real muffled. So y'all work through that. I'm gonna go back to Matt Morgan while that gets fixed. Matt, this is, as our guest said, this is life-changing for those people and those families who have been individuals who have been in prison, some a very long time because of drug offenses. And this is also, frankly, Joe Biden trying to make amends for his work when it came to the 1994 crime bill that he was the author of, that was signed into law by President Bill Clinton. Granted, that same law had the Violence Against Women Act in it. It had other things that have been beneficial, but the reality is that's also as part of his legacy. And so this is a way of trying to repair that.
Yeah, and part of legacy is reflection, looking back, if you have that opportunity, looking back on ways you should have approached things differently. And I want to be very clear, we're talking about people's lives, right? So when we're talking about policy, this is a really bad thing to get wrong, but I don't think you can have that conversation genuinely unless you discuss what the surrounding circumstances were like at the time that that bill was passed, and in terms of, you know, what the positions were on sentencing. So I'm glad that this has happened. But the tragedy with this is that people sat in prison for decades on nonviolent crimes and are now getting commutations, but it's too little too late. But it's also something that we can't eschew as not being important, because to your earlier point, the Constitution, you know, imbues the president with this authority, and we should want him or her to be energized to use this in the way that we think is in the society's best benefit, which is commuting sentences, particularly when we recognize, hey, we got it wrong in the past. The thing that's difficult to know is kind of what the enduring legacy will be, and in terms of how you should have gotten it right at the time. And that's what's going to be, you know, Biden's question. But frankly, even if he hadn't pardoned and commuted these people, that would have been a question about Mr. Biden and his tenure throughout the time he's been in government. So it's kind of, you know, part and parcel with what he would have been dealing with anyway in terms of reflection on his legacy.
Michael, we got your audio fix. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to say is absolutely record number of commutations. This is fantastic. I knew this was coming. But also when it comes to legacy, if you attend the HBCU and you benefited from the $17 billion in funding that HBCUs received from the Biden-Harris administration since 2021, or if you we have stimulus checks, we have the American Rescue Plan, we have the infrastructure bill, we have transformational policies coming from this administration. We have African American children lifted out of poverty. So in addition, at the tail end, you have this happening as well, another round of commutations. And I know he said more is to come. I'm hoping there is a presidential pardon for Marcus Garvey. I'm hoping there's one for Assata Shakur, because there was a RICO case against Assata Shakur, a federal RICO case against her. I'm hoping there's one for Marilyn Mosby, a pardon for Marilyn Mosby, as well as some of the members of the Black Panther Party who were still in prison. I'm hoping there's some other pardons for them as well. So this is fantastic. But once again, this is an example of how elections have consequences. OK, and when you look at what the Biden-Harris administration has done, how their policies have benefited African Americans, we've seen the fastest growth of African American owned businesses in 30 years. We saw 2.4 million jobs for African Americans approximately under the Biden-Harris administration, lowest unemployment rate going back to about 1970. It was in August of 2023, about 4.7%. So this is now you compare this to the shit show that's going to happen over the next 4 years with Donald Trump. That's all I have to say.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $6.65 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.